Today, we are excited to welcome Arin Miller-Tait, Bureau Chief Community Programming with the City of Cleveland, a partner with Bank On Cleveland. With almost 25 years of experience in schools, cultural institutions, nonprofits, and government, Arin has spent her career creating community-focused programs and initiatives that increase opportunity and access to resources and support vibrant, economically stable communities. She began her career as a classroom teacher and school administrator, serving Cleveland area nonprofits for over 15 years, and most recently as Senior Director of Community Education at University Circle, Inc., before joining the City of Cleveland in 2024. As Bureau Chief for Community Programming, she oversees the Department, Office of Community Engagement, Fair Housing, Consumer Protection, and Financial Empowerment, as well as the Middle Neighborhoods Initiative. She is also the co-founder of Teaching Cleveland, and she continues to serve as president of its board, and she also serves on the Citizens Advisory Council for the City of Cleveland Heights. Please welcome Arin.
Hi, everyone. So I just have a few slides and then I'm more than happy to kind of take questions and see where the conversation goes. So the Bank On program started as a partnership between the City of Cleveland and Enterprise Community Partners in about 2020. Both sides really saw an opportunity to work together to build sort of a stronger strategy around financial inclusion and financial empowerment in the city. As many of you know, Cleveland is one of the poorest big cities in the country. Our here at the city, our director of integrated development is fond of saying we don't have an affordability problem when it comes to housing, we have an income problem. And that is true for lots of different sectors beyond housing. So that desire to work in that space sort of became grounded in a program called Bank On. Bank On is sort of administered by the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund. They are a Bloomberg funded organization that really focuses on ways to improve financial stability by embedding financial empowerment specifically in local government with local government partners. And their overall goal is to eliminate the wage gap. Let's see, let me advance my slide. So if we're thinking about financial empowerment and financial inclusion, why focus on banking access? As many of you know, there is a historic distrust between communities of color and the banking system. It's not that different from the historic distrust that exists between communities of color and the government. These institutions have not served those communities fairly, historically speaking. So banking access is sort of the first connection to our financial system. It's our first connection as young people sometimes to saving when we get to open our first banking account. These are things that many of us take for granted, but in other communities, it's not as widely utilized, but there are some real disadvantages that are seen by not being attached to the banking system. For example, about 10% of your income can be spent on fees that are associated with alternative financial services. This is things like excessive interest, but also like check cashing fees, money orders, predatory lending. There are all kinds of things that add up in terms of the money that you spend using these alternative financial services. We also know that credit is really essential for your financial future, one's financial future. It gives you the ability to invest in a home, in a car, to build assets and build wealth that you can pass on from this generation to the next. If credit is inaccessible to you, so is that wealth building, which means that banks are your best way to start building that credit. So it makes a lot of sense to approach this through banking access, especially when you see the data on the city of Cleveland. So in the city, there are about 12% of our households are unbanked, meaning no one in the household has a bank account or access to a bank account. That is compared to 4.5% nationwide. So that is significant. It's a significant difference. When you combine that with the number of households that are underbanked, meaning one person has in a household has a bank account, you may or may not have access to that bank account. When you put those two statistics together, we're looking at 32% of Cleveland's population that are either underbanked or unbanked. So this really has, if you've, this coalition that was formed to start the Bank On program really wanted to focus on this, what seems like a simple step, something that a lot of people take for granted as a way of increasing Clevelanders' access, particularly Clevelanders of color, to the financial services that help us save money and grow wealth over time. So between 2020, 2021, they built this coalition around a series of meetings and convenings that really helped them get buy-in from community organizations and financial institutions to start this program. That resulted in some objectives and guiding principles that I'll go into in a minute. But the model itself kind of works on two levels. So Bank On has sort of a national approach and a local approach, and the coalition exists at a local level. And like I said, made up of community organizations and financial institutions, as well as local government partners and banking regulators. At the national level, the CFE fund and the Bank On National folks do a lot of work to build the stable of what they call Bank On certified accounts. These accounts are with just about every bank that you can think of. And they are sort of qualified in this way that gets them branded as the Bank On certified account. These accounts are affordable, safe, and functional. Affordable meaning that there's a low barrier to entry. You don't need a huge minimum deposit. They don't charge monthly fees. They're safe in the sense that there's no overdraft fees, and then just the general safety of keeping your money in a bank versus keeping your money somewhere else. And then these accounts are also functional in the sense that you can make withdrawals from an ATM, you can deposit, do things transfer things electronically. They're just useful. They do the things that bank accounts are supposed to do. And so at the federal level, the CFE really works to engage these banks in developing the accounts. At the local level, the coalition works to connect folks to those accounts. And so there's a couple of things that kind of guide the ways that we approach this work in banking access. First of all, racial equity. We have to acknowledge in trying to do this outreach and connecting folks to these services that race is the predominant determinant of social and economic inequities in America, meaning that just about everything that we see in terms of wealth and wealth gaps is magnified when you look at differences in race. So people of color are less able to build wealth over time because they have been disconnected from and excluded from this system for so long. Financial inclusion is at the core of this work. So understanding and assuming that consumers should not be forced to pay more because they're poor. I think this feels really logical, and yet there is often a poor tax that folks will pay, having to pay more for things because their credit is not as good, or having to pay additional fees because they have had financial challenges in the past. And then finally, one of the guiding principles of this work is that government collaboration is essential, and employer integrations are the best way to achieve scale. So we're going to talk about employer integrations in a minute. But that government collaboration piece really means that we are able, as a partner in this work, we're really able to sort of grease the wheels and enable some change in ways that non-governmental organizations can't. And then all of this is really directed at the kind of impact that we want to make, which is equitable access to financial services, increasing financial stability in the city, helping folks build assets and save money. And this is all, in many ways, particularly geographically targeted towards neighborhoods that have been historically redlined or excluded from other financial services. So a program integration. So the way that this works is the national organization focuses on certified accounts, and then we locally really focus on these program integrations. And the idea behind a program integration is that you are taking an employer or an organization that is working with clients or working with employees, and we help them look for a moment in the operation of their program where banking access could be brought into the conversation. So to give you an example here, YOU, their summer jobs program, many of you have probably are probably familiar with this. They serve youth from between the ages of 14 and 21, I think. And for many young people, this is their first job. And the goal of these programs is to, first of all, help them earn money, but also to teach them some job skills too. And so, as far as I'm concerned, learning how to take care of your money is a job skill. And so if you look at what the way things looked before they started this quote unquote program integration, they received paper checks or a pay card. Important to note that pay cards often have fees associated with them. You have limits on how many times you can use an ATM within the course of a month. Paper checks, we all know, get lost, get stolen out of mailboxes, get washed, financial or identity theft challenges, things like that. They were not receiving any financial education, and oftentimes youth in these programs are reliant on these alternative financial services like the pay cards or the check cashing, or they're reliant on their parents. And not to like badmouth anybody's parents, but it is really important that youth are able to learn about financial independence, right? That like that attachment to their parents, putting their money in their parents' checking account and then getting it back from their parents is not the same thing as managing their own money. And let's be honest, there are youth, particularly youth in foster care, who have really good reasons to want to hang on to their own money and to be sort of the primary keeper of that. So now that there is a program integration in place, YOU asks their youth in the intake process about their banking status. If they are unbanked, they're able to meet with a representative from a credit union that day and open a checking account. And then they get direct deposit for all of their paychecks throughout the summer. And then as another additional piece of this, they receive ongoing financial education throughout the span of the program. So they continue to improve their financial literacy over the course of their experience. And this is, in many ways seems like a small, again, many of us take this idea of having access to a banking account or a checking account for granted. But for many people, this is sort of the first step on the path to financial stability. And it's really kind of systems level work too, right? So thinking about the role of enterprise, community partners, and the city in this partnership, really what we do is we kind of act as brokers in some ways at as a coalition. We help connect community organizations to financial institutions that will meet their needs. We can, as folks look for partners to work with, we have access to all of these banks that we can help make those connections. And we work with a lot of organizations in the community that just have general interest in economic mobility and financial stability. And so we can kind of wrap some of these things together. For example, thinking about Enterprise's role in this partnership, they're very involved in the Earned Income Tax Credit Coalition. So like that partnership between like how you get your refund check and whether or not you have a bank account, those things kind of go hand in hand. So yeah, look at me, 12:15 on the nose. Very impressive. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great, Arin, thank you so much. Let's talk about how many people are you aware of that are participating in the program, and how does one really get involved?
So it's an interesting question. A lot of the work that we do, like I said, is kind of at a systems level in the sense that we don't work directly with the folks who are opening these bank accounts. So we have, I want to say about 40 plus members in our coalition. And so that, like I said, includes financial institutions, community organizations. I see some folks here on the call that are themselves maybe involved. Hi, Ashley. Um, and there's kind of a disconnect from the people themselves who are being served by the program. That said, I think if there's an interest in getting involved, some of the things that I might recommend are volunteering with the EITC to help folks prepare taxes. This is the season. You may have heard they're starting to advertise for volunteers. Another way to get involved is to think about the organizations where you work. Do your employees, do your volunteers, do your folks have places where if they receive a paycheck, it could be an opportunity to integrate banking access? So, for example, weirdly, the fight that I'm involved in right now is with the city of Cleveland itself. The city of Cleveland offers a fairly high cost pay card to employees as a means to get paid. Like I'm having to have this argument with my own employer. Irony of ironies. But yeah, so if you have employees that may or may not be connected to bank accounts, that's another great way. And if you're looking for someone to come out to your site, maybe you're doing an HR event of some kind, a financial wellness event, we can help connect folks to financial institutions that can send some volunteers out to help people open accounts.
From an employer standpoint or a program standpoint, what might be some of the concerns or hesitations in partnering with Bank On?
Um, I mean, I think part of it is that anytime you get involved in people's personal finances, it can feel invasive, right? And there's only so much that employees maybe want to share with their employers. There could be a perception that an employer is benefiting somehow from, like, say it's like a team of volunteers from PNC that come out, there's some suspicion of those folks because they came from the employer. One of the things that we can do through our we call it an RFP, a request for partnership. Through that process, is we can help maybe create a sort of an airlock of connection. Like maybe we can just provide some materials. Maybe it's somebody from enterprise that comes out or somebody from one of our other organizations and just talks about bank accounts and helps folks connect in other ways. So we can create some separation for you if that's needed. Other risks, I mean, it's hard for me to think of downsides to having your employees be more financially stable. But I think it's really more in that space of trust between employer and employee that there might be challenges.
And since the program started in 2020, what have been some of the early successes that you're aware of?
I would say a couple of these integrations we're really pretty proud of. The YOU integration is a particular example. As many of you know, it's a huge program, and especially to be able to instill these skills and ideals in young people, I think is really important to connect with them at that age. I think we're pretty proud of that. Some of the things that we've been doing recently are a little bit more advocacy focused. So, just as an example, it's kind of in my head because it was fairly recent, but as you may know, the United States Treasury has stopped issuing paper checks for transfer payments. And one of the things that is going to be challenging, a lot of the folks that receive benefits or disability, those folks are already kind of in the system. And the pay cards that the government's using are also pretty awful. But the to be able to kind of head this off for folks with tax returns, like this is the first tax season where that's going to be a challenge for the tax preparers. And so like we put together this really great campaign. And I think what I'm so proud of about it is that just like the coalition just kind of came together and made it happen. Like we had PNC at the table who like helped us get a consultant and enterprise managed the consultant. And we put this, like we had assets created and did a little campaign and it all came together so quickly because the coalition is so committed to this work and really able to use their kind of pull in their organizations to help these things happen.
So building a coalition, working in a coalition can be challenging with all the different parties at the table. What have you learned from this coalition that you would advise others to lean into? And some of those takeaways of how do you really work in a successful coalition?
That's a really good question. And I think one of the things that I like the most about this team of people is that they come from really different but really complementary spaces. We have like our banking partners who know the ins and outs of how their all of their products work and what kind of resources they have. We have these great community organizations that are so connected on the ground, understanding really great at understanding the needs of their clients and how we can best serve them. And then even throwing in the banking regulators who are like kind of, they're kind of like a little magical glue there because um, they have some pull over these financial institutions that while the people that are part of the coalition are, of course, like lovely and cooperative, when you think about banks as a whole, they often need to be convinced of things. They need to be able to see their benefit. And having those regulators on the team really enables them to see what they get out of this, making it a win-win for everybody involved. And so I think, like, broadly thinking about coalitions, the idea that everyone brings something different and like bringing together people that all do the same thing is great, but real benefit comes from bringing together people who don't do the same thing, who look at things a little differently, who have a different set of skills, a different set of contacts. Like it just kind of changes the possibilities. Your possibilities really expand.
And over the past few years, as you've been in this work, what have been some maybe unexpected challenges that the coalition has had to work through?
I don't know if it was unexpected necessarily, but I would say there's been a real desire to measure our impact. Um, and I think lots of folks that work in social services or community do community development kind of things, measuring that impact is really hard to do because you're sort of trying to examine people in their natural habitat in ways that is not really conducive necessarily to adding up numbers or that can is not easily represented by numbers. So I think that measurement is always really hard. We try the bank on work is generally, you know, we use sort of a framework of like are things changing at the city level? Like, is that percentage of folks that are banked or underbanked, is that number going down? If it's going down, maybe we're doing okay. Like we're not hurting anything at least. And so, oh, hi Paris, nice to see you. Um, you know, and so it's like thinking about how you are making an impact at the city level is not the same as understanding the impact that you have on an individual person, but at least it's something.
What do you feel is kind of the next iteration or in the next couple of years where Bank on CLE is going?
I'm really glad you asked that. So we are in the next few months, we are going to release the city's financial empowerment blueprint. This is a document, kind of an action plan around increasing financial empowerment resources in the city. So, what kinds of things do we need to help folks? We're like I said, it's not a city where we're not talking about building wealth. We're talking about getting through the month. And so, like, what are the things that we can do for our residents to get them on that path towards economic mobility, and financial stability and financial empowerment? So, this blueprint will kind of lay out a lot of that, but there'll be a lot of programming and sort of network building, data collection things that go along with that as well. And Bank On is a really big part of that. So one of the things that the next iteration of Bank On will really look at is how this work fits into the larger financial empowerment landscape in the city. The county is actually about to open a financial empowerment center where one-on-one financial counseling will be available to county residents for free. A lot of the work that we're going to be doing is to take that county work and kind of focus it at the city level. And the Bank On network, the Bank On Coalition is going to be a big part of that and kind of leveraging that out into the community. Yeah, I mean, I think there's just a lot of space um, for this work to grow in that larger context of financial empowerment. So we're in that blueprint. Stay tuned. Should be released in February. There'll be a lot of information about how folks can get involved there too.
So it kind of builds onto the question that I have next is if someone is here and thinking about, oh, this would benefit my employees or folks I know, how can they get involved? Where should they reach out to learn more?
I can put here in the chat um, our manager of financial empowerment. Her name is Lizzie Bjork, and her email is clevelandohio.gov. Oops, I missed the K. Hold on. I'm gonna spell it right so you can actually find her. There we go. Um, and she can definitely connect you either to the Bank On Coalition if that's a good fit for you, or maybe to some of our community partners that might be looking for that might be a good fit to connect depending on what you need.
Well, Erin, we have time for one more question. And given, just everything we hear day in and day out, I want to focus in on joy. So what is one thing this holiday season that is bringing you joy?
Let's see. It shouldn't be this hard a question. I think in terms of particularly in terms of this work, I've been in this role for about 18 months, and I think I'm finally starting to feel like I understand how, I mean, you rattled off that name of that list of things that fall into my bucket, and it's a lot of different things, but I'm finally starting to figure out how they all fit together. And that's the kind of stuff that just like lights up my brain and gets me really interested in like solving the problems and building new processes and creating new messaging and all of that stuff. So I'm like finally I'm sort of starting to feel like I'm about to take off. So I'll come back in a year and tell you how it's going.
Well, we look forward to that. And Erin, thank you for joining us today
It
and
was a
sharing the
pleasure.
work of Bake On. We so appreciate you jumping in.
No problem. No problem. Have a great day. Happy holidays.